Thank you to the several of you that reminded me I had not posted any videos yet. They have been posted on the YouTube channel, so we're back up and running. So the last 2 days we've talked about substrate utilization, control of blood glucose and hormones. With resistance training, we talked a lot about anabolic processes and protein synthesis and muscle growth. We're going to finish today hitting just a little bit on the idea of fluid balance, which will become important at the very end of class when we talk about how we regulate body temperature during exercise and what happens when we exercise and it's hot. Okay, so we control your fluid balance and also blood pressure, weirdly, through your kidneys. Okay, through your kidneys. So when you think of fluid balance, basically just think about how much urine you make every day. How much fluid do you drink? How much urine do you make? And the net sort of balance across those two things is going to give us some idea of your fluid balance. Okay. So in response to exercise, if this will actually change, there we go. Okay. Make this other thing go away. That needs to go away. That needs to go away. Everything just, there we go. Okay. All right. We are going to, sorry, this has just become a shit show. We're going to push water, okay, out of the blood into muscles. Think about if we had you guys get up and do a bunch of reps right now to failure. What do we want to do? What do the bros do in the gym? Doing this. I did all my curls, right? Because it's Wednesday, so it's curl day and second chest day. I did all my curls, and then what are we going to do? Very broy, right? I'm going to pose, I'm going to flex. In front of the mirror, right? What kind of pump do I have? The idea of I exercise the muscles, I increase metabolism, it drives water out of the blood, out of interstitial space into muscle cells. Those muscle cells swell, and then your muscles will at times look more defined because of all of that. And then an hour later, the water goes back where it's supposed to, and you shrink back down to regular size. Okay. So this happens for two reasons. Okay. We drive water in because of what's called osmotic and hydrostatic pressure. Osmotic pressure is ions. Okay. Ions. Water is a polar molecule, right? Which is why if you do a belly buster off the high dive, it's like jumping onto concrete or something because it's polar and it wants to stick together. Okay, and that's a positive side, and the negative side, it gets drawn towards these ions. So when we build up metabolites within a cell in response to metabolic processes, in response to contractions, that draws water in. That's called osmotic pressure. Okay. Additionally, we have what's called hydrostatic pressure. This is water pressure. Okay. As we will see, probably not today, but on Friday in the cardiovascular system, when you begin to exercise, your blood pressure goes up, right? You release epinephrine and norepinephrine. It drives cardiac output. It drives up blood pressure. So when blood pressure goes up, the pressure in the vessels is higher. The water pressure in the vessels is higher than the water pressure inside a muscle cell. And so it wants to diffuse from high pressure to low pressure. So that also forces water out of the blood into those cells. And the net of these two things is that water or plasma volume, the water in your blood decreases. So your blood volume goes down, okay? And the water inside muscle cells goes up. So your muscle cells will swell. There are some people that argue that that swelling is beneficial, that swelling in the muscle cell drives anabolic processes. I'm not sure we're there yet, right, from a mechanistic standpoint for all of that. But what we definitely know is that it drives plasma volume to decrease, okay? So when you're exercising, in essence, by driving fluid into muscle cells, you slightly dehydrate yourself, okay? just ever so slightly dehydrate yourself. And when I say dehydrate, like the water's not gone. It's just not, it's no longer in the blood, which has some effects on blood pressure, some effects on heart rate, and other things that we will see as we go through the cardiovascular system. Okay. So if we add on top of this exercise when it's hot and sweat, when you sweat, that fluid comes out of the blood. Okay. The fluid essentially comes out of the blood. So when you sweat, we're now losing additional water from the blood. So the combination of these two things all together can lead to dehydration. If you continue to exercise when you're dehydrated and it's hot outside, your ability to dissipate heat can become impaired and you can get overheating. Overheating initially leads to central fatigue. If you overheat too much, then it can lead to different kinds of heat illness and it can be really, really dangerous. The other big issue, right? You guys ever feel like you exercise and it's hot out, you sweat a bunch, it feels more difficult, right? It feels harder. Well, there's real cardiovascular consequences to this. There's real central fatigue consequences. Like you're not imagining it, it's a real thing. We'll get into that kind of towards the end of class. Okay. But the hormone issue with all of this is you go exercise today and you drive the water out of your blood. That evokes a hormone response to try to replace that water in your blood, even though it's just gone into muscle cells and it will all diffuse back relatively soon. The hormone response is plasma volume has fallen. Let's release antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone and try to hang on to more water at the kidneys and rehydrate ourselves. Okay. So aldosterone is a steroid hormone that comes from the adrenal cortex, like cortisol. Okay. It is released by a drop in blood pressure. As your plasma volume falls, your blood pressure will fall. Okay. Remember, I told you guys the kidneys are really important for regulating blood pressure. You release aldosterone. Aldosterone functions to do a strange thing because your kidneys are weird, right? Aldosterone tells the kidneys, and I have forgotten the exact, if it's the distal convoluted tubules or which of the places in the kidneys it is. It says, hold on to more sodium. Okay. Hold on to sodium in the kidneys. If you hold on to the sodium, then you also hold on to more water. So the net effect is more sodium, more water, make less urine. Okay. If we're already a little dehydrated, don't make urine, so we keep the water that we do have. That's going to be a positive. Conversely, we have antidiuretic hormone, which comes from the posterior pituitary, and that is controlled by the concentrating of the plasma. As water leaves the blood becomes more concentrated. Okay, the osmotic pressure in the blood goes up, and that then leads to the increase of water resorption at a different place in the kidney. But the net effect of these two things is hold on to water, make less urine, which will then replenish your plasma volume. Okay, it will replenish your plasma volume. Because of this, one of the most beneficial responses to exercising, and exercising every couple of days, is that you expand the plasma in your blood, which makes your total blood volume go up. So you exercise today, you mildly dehydrate yourself, you release aldosterone and ADH, you hold on to more water, you replenish some fluids, your plasma volume goes up a little bit. You wait a couple of days, you do it again, it goes up again, a couple more days, it goes up again, and eventually you do this for a month and you look up and your plasma volume is a whole liter larger than it was when you started. When your blood volume goes up, as you guys will see, it makes your VO2 max go up. And so this response, one, it helps us from a dehydration standpoint, from a performance standpoint, but it also leads to one of the most powerful adaptations to aerobic training that we see. And it's in response to that disruption of plasma volume homeostasis. Okay. So we'll talk a lot more about this in the cardiovascular system, and then when we do aerobic training in the next couple of weeks. Okay. Questions about that? No. Do we need to get up and we need to do some squats? We need to drive some plasma out of our blood into our quads? No? Okay. We're working our way towards that. All right. So let's do cardiovascular system as well. There's probably going to be, no, is it not going to come up? Well, it's thinking about it. I have no idea what that is, but okay. My computer is now very, very unhappy with us because I don't even see that. Okay, let's do that. Did that fix it? No, this is just riveting class time. Nope. Of course not. No. What is happening? The world does not want you guys to see the cardiovascular system slides.
You need to use my laptop?
What's happening? This is weird.
We're supposed to be closer. Yes. Wait, it's on. Yeah. I would try to like choose glasses. Like 3 minutes.
They don't know. They didn't trust it.
Yeah.
They didn't know what. Story. No, we should be out that day. Cause that's 26, yeah. So I think we just have Monday and Tuesday that week.
What is it doing?
You might have to restart. Maybe that. Restart what? Oh. You might have to get in class. Fine. We're doing extra credit. You say what? We're doing extra credit for Friday. It's Halloween. Yeah, come in a costume. Come in a costume.
I don't.
That's a question for DB.
What?
Can they get a point of extra credit for coming in a costume?
Oh. You're welcome to come in a costume, but I cannot give you extra credit for coming in a costume. Why?
What if we did a contest for best costumes?
I love Halloween. But what if there are people that don't love Halloween and don't want to dress up?
That's why it's.
Then I have to let them do something else for extra credit as well, because that's how we get equity. Okay, I don't know what is happening. This whole thing is really. That's right. I hate joy.
He does. He made me change my colorful slides.
I don't know what it is doing. Maybe this will work.
I didn't even think about it. No.
It hates me.
What we can do is you can just plug in my laptop and lecture from here, and I can click these slides over for people on Zoom.
I think I have it, Ty, but I just need to. It just keeps reverting these things. Okay. That's good. Okay. 8 years later, we have the cardiovascular system. So, most of what we're going to talk about in the cardiovascular system, you guys should have already seen. Okay. So, we're going to go a little faster here, which I know some of you will look at me and be like, well, we go really fast anyway. But we're going to spend less time on some structures. I'm gonna, if you're an old Seinfeld watching person, which I bet many of you are not, I will yada yada a lot of the structures because you've seen them like 7 times. Okay. You still have to know them, but we're not going to spend a huge amount of time talking about the left ventricle and the right ventricle and this and that and those things. Okay. We're going to spend a lot more of our time talking about control mechanisms, functions, like how does all of this stuff work during exercise. Okay. And you've had that before, I believe, but we're gonna put a lot of our focus there. Okay, I'm gonna say some things that's gonna upset our cardiovascular researchers in the department. This is in no way, shape, or form meant to I don't know, denigrate the importance of the cardiovascular system, because without it, we die. Okay, but it is, to me, it's a support system. The cardiovascular system functions to support metabolism, to support muscle function, to support neural function, to support brain function. Okay, without it, nothing else happens. But changes in the cardiovascular system generally depend upon changes that occur in other systems, primarily metabolism, okay, in the body. And so in that way, you don't get a initial change there and then do something else. It's that something else changes in the cardiovascular system, adjusts its function to help match all of that. It plays a tremendously large role in exercise performance, especially aerobic exercise performance and longer duration exercise. And especially if you do exercise where we have some level of lack of oxygen or lack of blood flow, which we will get into a little bit. Okay. It is also one of these systems, if not the system, that has the largest number of potential adaptations in response to training. Okay. The proper function of the cardiovascular system makes you live longer, right? The leading cause of death in industrialized nations is cardiovascular disease, where you get impaired function in the cardiovascular system. That impaired function impacts exercise performance, which at some point then begins to impact actual function. When you're an older adult, you're not exercising, you're just trying to walk upstairs. You're just trying to carry your groceries or something. So our ability to alter and improve function in this system with exercise is 100% key to longevity and quality of life. Okay, so we're going to talk some about how all of that stuff works. Okay. There are multiple functions, some of which are beyond the scope of our class, that I think are really cool with the cardiovascular system. We're going to focus mostly on delivery. Okay. The cardiovascular system brings oxygen, and I have written nutrients, but what I mean is glucose, free fatty acids, amino acids. Okay. It brings metabolic substrate and oxygen to skeletal muscle during exercise or at rest. It brings oxygen and glucose to the brain, which is really, really important at all times. It also removes waste products. It removes carbon dioxide, brings the carbon dioxide back to the lungs so we can exhale it. It transports hormones. It is a huge, huge player in maintaining body temperature, which is key both during exercise and at rest. It also helps us control pH, helps us buffer acidity, and then it plays a large role in immune function. And the immune function part is probably more for an immunology class or biology, a human physiology class than what we're going to do, but it plays a really big issue there too. Okay. We're going to break up the system into three kind of primary components: the heart, blood vessels, and blood. Okay. You've probably done a lot and seen a lot of things as it relates to the heart and blood vessels in the past. You may have seen a little bit less about blood. Okay. Blood is one of my favorite sort of organs or tissues, or however you want to quantify it. And I feel like it gets short shrift sometimes when we talk about things. Okay. The heart is basically a pump. It's the thing that moves this stuff around for us. The blood vessels are a highway or plumbing or pipes or conduits, however you want to phrase them, that carry the blood everywhere. They also play a huge role in controlling where it goes. And then the blood is also a place where there's a lot of action. This is where all the nutrients are stored, where the oxygen is stored, where the CO2 is stored, where the hormones go. And so it is a thing that we need to understand really well if we're going to understand how this system supports normal functions as well. Okay. Okay, my battery is running low. I don't understand what is happening with that. That doesn't seem like a great idea. This doesn't seem great, Ty. What happened? I don't know. My battery's not charging, so my computer may die at any moment. So we'll just, if you wouldn't mind pulling it up on your computer, and we'll be ready if we need to swap things around. Okay. Here's the heart. Everybody, take your left hand, make a fist. Okay. Now swing that fist. No, don't, not towards your left hand. No. Make a fist. Take your fist, put it right like this with your thumb essentially pointing towards your right shoulder, with the kind of crook down here of your pinky pointing at your left hip, right? Put it just left of center on yourself right here. There's your heart. That's its orientation. That's roughly its size. It's about the size of your fist. Okay. It sits in our chest and does this. So there it is. You're looking at it in this direction. Okay. So on here, this is actually the right side. This is the left side. This is not anatomy class. I need you to know the 4 chambers of the heart, and I need you to know the sequence of blood movement across those 4 chambers, and that is it. It's probably helpful for you to know what the aorta is, but that's all you got to know. Okay? Right atria, right ventricle, lungs, right? Comes back, left atria, left ventricle, aorta, out into circulation. We're good. I don't care if you know about the valves and how many flaps the fucking valves have. I don't care if you know the name of all of the coronary arteries, if it's the right circumflex artery or the left circumflex. I don't care. Those are important things, but you have an anatomy book, you can look them up. Okay. We're going to focus primarily on venous blood comes in on the right side. It then goes to the lungs. It comes back in the left side, and then it goes out into systemic circulation. That's the big thing. Okay. When we talk about primary cardiovascular parameters as it relates to the heart, we are referring generally to what is going on in the left ventricle. Okay. We're going to get to a parameter called stroke volume, but stroke volume is controlled primarily by the size of the left ventricle and its strength of contraction. Okay. We're going to talk about that as kind of our representative thing. But do remember, blood comes in the atria, right? They're relaxed while the ventricles contract. They contract, the ventricles relax, blood moves from the atria into the ventricle and then out. Okay. That's what I want you to know. Can you guys do that? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I need you to know. No more than that. Okay. Where we're going to spend a little bit more time is talking about some of the special structures in cardiac muscle. Cardiac muscle under a microscope looks almost exactly like skeletal muscle. It is striated, it has sarcomeres, okay? It's very highly organized. But there are a couple of differences in cardiac muscle that help it impart its function, okay? It looks like skeletal muscle. It contracts like skeletal muscle, except it has a more extensive capillary network, which means it gets more blood flow than skeletal muscle does normally. And roughly 40% of the cytoplasmic volume of cardiac muscle is mitochondria. 40%. What is cardiac muscle really, really good at?
Repeating its own cycle.
Right? Producing energy how, son? You're right, but how?
Aerobically.
Aerobically. It's really good at aerobic metabolism. I think I made this joke like one of the first days of class. Okay. Just, I don't know, just pick somebody. One of the Abbeys. I don't care which one. How old are you?
21.
21. Okay. Abby's 21. Your heart has been beating for 21 and a half years. We'll say 70 times a minute. Let's do some, where's my phone? We're going to do some math. Okay. Let's just say your heart beats 70 times a minute. Okay. There are 60 minutes in an hour. Okay. There are 24 hours in a day. There are 365 days in a year. And we've done 21 years. My rough math is that your heart has beated, I don't know, whatever. You've had about 772,632,000 heartbeats in your life, give or take. Okay? Imagine if you'd done that many squats. Your entire life, you're just doing this all the time. Can you imagine how tired you would be? Right? And yet your heart physically is never tired, right? Psychologically, it may be tired, but right, it never gets tired. It does not get fatigued because it can produce all of this ATP because it has just a huge amount of mitochondria. Just imagine if you had done 770 million contractions of your bicep or something like that across your life. Okay. Tell the bros that one. Okay. Zoom folks, can y'all hear me again? The computer died, but I think we're back.
Yep.
Okay. In addition to all of these mitochondria, one of the things that makes cardiac muscle unique are some other structures that help hold cardiac muscle cells together and help us transmit electrical signals from one cell to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay. So we have things called desmosomes, gap junctions, and they occur at a kind of broad area that we call an intercalated disc. A desmosome is like a clamp, okay? And it is a special structure that holds like you to your neighbor. You're grabbing onto your neighbor, so it holds one cardiac muscle cell to the adjacent cardiac muscle cell, okay? It holds them very tight. We get very forceful contractions, and so this helps us keep our structures together. Gap junctions are like doorways or windows from one cardiac muscle cell to an adjacent one. And it allows for the passage of ions, especially calcium, to get passed from one to the next. This, when we get into in a couple of slides, how cardiac muscle gets its signal to contract, it's not going to get the same kind of signal that skeletal muscle does. And so we're going to make use of these gap junctions to help us go from one cell to the next very, very rapidly. Let me advance slides, please. There we go. So one cardiac muscle fiber, a second cardiac muscle fiber. These are desmosomes here, right? You can see them, right? You can see the gap junctions, but you can see this sort of desmosomes holding us together. This whole area where one comes into contact with the next one is called an intercalated disc. Okay, but we have desmosomes there, and then we have gap junctions at those intercalated discs, and it holds them together and lets us pass ions quickly from one to the other. Okay. How does the heart contract? Everyone do a fun trick for me. Make your heart stop beating. Who can do it? It's a fun party trick. Who can make your heart stop beating? Anybody? No? Can't? Okay. Make your heart beat faster. Can you do that? Okay. Okay. But that one you can do. You can make it go up, but you can't make it go, you can't make it stop. Can you make your skeletal muscle contract when you want? Yes. Okay. You can make it stop. So cardiac muscle functions differently than skeletal muscle. You've never once in your life thought about making your heart beat, right? For Abby, can you imagine? She's had 770 million heartbeats, and you have to think about every one of them. Beat, beat, beat. Like you'd never do anything else in your life. All you would think about is that. I get distracted really easily. I'm just wandering around doing things and forget about making my heart beat right, and like you over. So your heart does something called autoconduction. It does not exhibit voluntary motor control in the way that skeletal muscle does. Okay. There is not a motor cortex that sends a signal down your spinal cord that then releases acetylcholine that tells cardiac muscle to contract. Cardiac muscle signals within itself through something called autoconduction across a system of sort of nerve bundles and fibers and across the individual cardiac muscle cells that's called the cardiac conduction system. Okay. Your heart intrinsically fires. It will beat roughly 70-ish times per minute if we do not put any external input onto it. We're always putting some kind of input in generally. Okay. But if left to its own devices, you'll have a resting heart rate of about 70-ish beats per minute. Okay. So let's walk through what this system is. You guys should have seen this before, right? But we're gonna go through it. This is one of the things that you have to memorize. Okay, you just have to memorize. You need to know the structures, you need to know their location, you need to know the order of how things are going to be signaled. Right? Autoconduction, or the initiation of a cardiac muscle contraction, so the initiation of a heartbeat, starts in a nerve bundle called the sinoatrial node. It is located here at the top of the right ventricle. Okay? And its location is important. It's important. It's the top of the right ventricle. Okay. This is sometimes referred to as the pacemaker in your heart. The SA node has leaky sodium channels. What that means is it has channels that let sodium slowly leak in, which then generates an action potential. Okay? Generates an action potential. The leaky sodium channels generate action potentials if they're not under any influence of acetylcholine, epinephrine, or norepinephrine about 70 times a minute. So about every 0.8 seconds. Okay. From the SA node, cardiac muscle is excitable like skeletal muscle. You will send action potentials across the cardiac muscle and it spreads across the right atrium. It will then reach in the sort of bottom right of the right atria another collection of nerve fibers that's called the AV, or the atrioventricular node. It's called atrioventricular because it's located at the junction of the atria and the ventricle. Okay. This is going to help us move our impulse from atria down into the ventricles. Okay. Running down the middle part of the heart, which is called the septum, are nerve fibers that are called the bundle of His. I know it's spelled His, but it's pronounced His. Okay. That's also sometimes called the AV bundle. The AV bundle. So SA node, AV node, bundle of His, down the septum of the heart. It reaches the bottom or the apex, and then it turns and it comes back up from the bottom. And there's a collection of small fibers that then wrap the ventricles up in them that are called Purkinje fibers. They're called Purkinje fibers. So SA node, AV node, bundle of His, Purkinje fiber. That's the sequence, that's the order. Okay. The location of these structures is absolutely key to how we move blood around in the heart. Remember that we move blood initially into the right atria, okay, from the right atria into the right ventricle. It then goes to the lungs and it comes back in the left atria, from the left atria into the left ventricle. Okay. What we get because of the locations is a situation where the atria contract first and send blood to the ventricles, then the ventricles contract and send blood to the lungs or the circulation. And you get this alternating contract, relax, contract, relax between the atria and the ventricles. And that's driven by, it starts here, this contracts, we spread across the atria to the left side, it contracts, the blood moves into the ventricles, and our signal, because these are nerve fibers, the signal, the action potential can move faster in a nerve fiber than it can across the surface of the cardiac muscle. So it races down here and then turns and contracts from the bottom up. Okay, from the bottom up. Because blood leaves the ventricles at the top. It goes out right into the pulmonary arteries, or it goes out into the aorta, which is up. So contracts here first, squeeze, 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 up, blood leaves. And the atria contracts at the top and it goes squeeze, 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 squeeze down, which forces the blood down. Does that make sense? You guys see that? Okay. When watch any medical show whatsoever, when people go into cardiac arrest or they go into defibrillation, what happens is the sequence of which ones are contracting when gets off. And that's why we put the paddles on and you shock them to try to reset the entire system. Because if the atria and the ventricles are contracting out of sequence, you don't move blood, it doesn't go anywhere. Okay. And so the initiation of the signal, the location of the structures impart how the heart functions, just in some ways like structure imparts function in skeletal muscle. Okay. Soren, you had a question. Move back.
Said that usually the sinoatrial node maintains a steady beat of like 72.
Yes.
Other times, is it under like vagal or, okay.
It is. The SA node is interesting because I can evoke a stress response out of any of you. And you release epinephrine and norepinephrine, especially norepinephrine tells the SA node to depolarize faster. I could have you guys do some yoga poses right now. We could do some breathing and I could increase vagal input onto the SA node. I can remove epinephrine, norepinephrine, I can apply acetylcholine and it slows down. So there is an ability to sort of influence how often it depolarizes. And you do have some control over that. But if left to its own devices, it's about 70 to 75 beats per minute. Okay. We're going to stop here for today. Do my honor students, y'all want to come yell at them really quickly about what you're doing? So I have a couple of honor students that are working in the lab. They need more participants to be able to get their grade and finish. So if you guys would be willing to come and check out what they're doing and learn about your muscles and things, I think it might be fun. So with that, I will give you Halen and Delaney. And Peyton is here for moral support. She can't actually talk. So, okay, go.
Hi guys, I'm Halen. Me and Delaney are doing our honors research this semester in Dr. Black's lab.